Will my rentals have to go through the probate process if I hold them inside of an LLC? Yes, when your rental properties are inside of an LLC and then you hold the LLC membership interest in your personal name, the LLC will have to go through the probate process before it can be distributed out to your family, which means that your family has zero ownership over your LLC until the probate process is completely over and that LLC has been distributed out to them. So why does this matter? This is what happens when your LLC goes through the probate process. Your heirs cannot legally access or manage the rental income associated with those properties. Bills, taxes, and property management decisions get delayed. Tenants may not know who to make payments to. It's likely they won't be making payments, and you cannot evict them while the LLC is in the probate process. The court, not your family, controls the probate process and the timeline for how everything is going to play out. Legal fees and probate costs reduce the value of the inheritance that you're trying to pass down to your family. So obviously, if your goal is to streamline and make things much smoother on your family when you pass away, this will have the opposite effect. Let's talk about a common misconception that real estate investors have. They think that just because the rental property is inside of an LLC, it's going to avoid the probate process. Now, the rental properties themselves do not go through the probate process, but because you hold the LLC membership interest in your personal name, it will have to go through the probate process because any assets in your name have to go through probate. And the courts have to authorize the transfer of ownership for the LLC down to your spouse or your kids. So let's talk about what an LLC does for your rental properties and what it does not do. The LLC is going to give you limited liability protection. So if you have a lawsuit coming after a rental property that's inside the LLC, the lawsuit gets isolated to that LLC and it will not be able to access your personal assets like your family home. But the LLC is not an estate planning tool. It does not determine who's going to be inheriting the properties inside of the LLC. All it does is give asset protection for you from any liabilities associated with those rentals. And unless you've made plans for the LLC to avoid the probate process, it's going to get stuck in probate for 1 to 2 years, depending on the complexity of the estate and what has to go through it. So let's talk about how to make your LLC avoid the probate process so that when you pass away, it goes directly down to your spouse or your kids without having to get stuck in the probate courts and the courts having authority over what happens with that LLC. So here's a quick summary of the steps. Create a revocable living trust, transfer the LLC into that revocable living trust, make sure that your operating agreement allows the trust to actually own the membership interest, update the official records to show that the trust owns the LLC, no longer you, inform your heirs and the co-owners that you have transferred the ownership out of your name into the trust, and then obviously make sure you're revisiting your estate plan every couple of years to make sure that it's up to date so your LLC does not get stuck in the probate process for whatever reason. If you want help making sure your LLC will avoid the probate process and go directly down to your family, click link in the bio, fill out the form, and schedule a time to talk to some of our team. So step 1 is going to be setting up a trust to hold the LLC membership interest. You can choose a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust. A revocable trust will avoid probate. An irrevocable trust will give your assets asset protection from any of your personal liabilities. Step 2 is going to be transferring the LLC membership interest into that trust. You will use a document called an assignment of membership interest to make the transfer out of your name into the name of the trust. Step 3 is going to be updating your LLC's operating agreements. The operating agreement should have clear language in there that allows the trust to actually have ownership of the membership interest. It needs to have clear instructions for what happens when a member of the LLC passes away, and it needs to have provisions for appointing a successor and for how to transfer a membership interest. Without these provisions in it, you can create legal disputes down the road between beneficiaries, co-owners, etc. Step 4 is going to be coordinating with other co-owners if it's a multi-member LLC. With this, you should clearly outline what happens if someone passes away or becomes incapacitated, who gets ownership interest, and how control of the LLC is passed on. You can use a buy-sell agreement, which outlines who can purchase the deceased shares and for how much, a first right of refusal, which gives the other members of the LLC the first option to be able to purchase those shares, and a succession plan inside of that operating agreement. This helps prevent conflicts between surviving co-owners and heirs, and it keeps the business operating smoothly when someone passes away. Step 5 is going to be make sure that your documentation is completely updated. So if your paperwork is not updated, your heirs could still end up in the probate courts. So you've transferred the LLC membership interest into the trust, but you have to update your documents so that your LLC's membership ledger shows that the trust owns that LLC membership interest. Your operating agreement and any other internal documents reflect those changes, and you're keeping copies of the trust transfer documents with your internal record. As an example, let's say that all of your internal documents show that you own all of those assets and not the trust. The banks, title companies, and the probate courts may still act as if you own the LLC membership interest, and this could force your heirs to have to open up the probate process just to be able to access all of those accounts. If you want to set up your LLC to avoid the probate process, or you need help probating an LLC when someone has passed away, click link in the bio, fill out the form, and schedule a time to talk some more our team.